morning everyone, Waterfowler41 here, and in today's video we are replacing the tonneau cover on my 2020 Ram Rebel. So previous to this video I had the rugged liner premium hard folding tonneau cover. So basically, as far as what type of cover it was obviously a hard trifold, so there's 3 sections and they would fold over on top of each other. But the difference between that cover and the one I'm going to be installing today is that cover sat on top of the rails, whereas this new cover is going to sit inside the rails. So what cover am I installing? So we're looking at the Extang Encore tonneau cover. So this is sort of a hybrid between a on the rail plus a rail inside the rail mounted tonneau cover, and I'll show you why once I get it installed as to kind of the main reasons why I went with this cover. But what do you get in the kit other than the obvious tonneau cover itself? So it comes folded up nicely in a box that showed up in one piece, so that's perfect. In the kit you get your 6 clamps, 3 per side. So these clamps are there to hold on the aluminum channels, so you'll get a driver's side channel as well as a passenger side channel. And because you're using an inside the bed rail mount and it's going to be a weatherproof mount, you're going to need some drain hoses, so those come in the kit. Then you got some weather stripping, and then this very, very, very important little piece of styrofoam. So don't throw this out when you open up the box, but basically what this is a spacer, and you use this to make sure that when you're installing the rails up against the bulkhead that you're far enough back to allow clearance for the operation of this tonneau cover. So this tonneau cover does something different that most of the conventional covers don't do, and like I said, I'll show you once I get it installed. It's easier to explain a lot of the things that it does. So the first thing we are going to go ahead and do is wipe down my truck. So it sat outside last night. I took off the other rugged liner cover a couple weeks ago, sold that off, and now I have a wet truck because it rained last night. So I'm going to go ahead and dry everything off, and then the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this weather stripping and we're going to go up right here on the bulkhead, and we're going to install a piece of weather stripping from this side all the way over to the passenger side. And the reason you do that is because there is a lip here and you want this all to be the same level, so they give you the weather stripping to make sure that you level off the bulkhead portion of it. Now if you have a bed liner, like a plastic drop-in liner, it's very likely that that liner is going to be the same height as here. If not, I have a rhino liner, so I got to add the weather stripping here. So when in doubt, just add the weather stripping. You can always remove it if you don't need it. So let's go ahead and cut a piece of strip to fit in here and get it installed. Before we get the weather stripping installed, real quick, as far as tools that you need, you're going to need scissors because you're going to need to cut that weather stripping. A knife will work as well. And then you're going to need a 1/2-inch socket, and the 1/2-inch socket is there to tighten these guys up. Other than that, if you already have the access holes open, here, let's go over here. Those drain tubes are going to be up on the front of the bulkhead, and they're going to need somewhere to go. So if you already have the holes open, so I have this hole open on front on both sides, then we're good to go. Otherwise, you're going to need a drill to figure out how you pop open these caps here, or a flathead to pop open the caps. Most trucks will have some sort of access area right here to get into the side of the stake hole pocket, but you're going to need to open up an access somehow for those drain tubes. So like I said, let's go ahead and get that weather stripping installed here. Okay, so we have the weather stripping installed. So basically what it did is I pushed it as much as I could up against this bed rail, and it makes it nice and even. Run it all the way across the bulkhead up to the passenger side. So all you gotta do now at this point is pull off the backing. Then we're good to go. So now let's start with the rails, and this is where that piece of styrofoam comes in, because basically these rails, let's see, the rails themselves have a little bit of a lip, so they're going to sit up on top of the bed rail. But what you want to do with that styrofoam piece is you want to make sure it's spaced far enough back from here so that one of the key functionalities of the Encore cover can function properly. And like I said, I'll show you after it gets installed, but basically this tonneau cover, the front section, the section of tonneau cover up against the bulkhead or up against the cab of the truck will open without the rest of the tonneau cover open. So there's a little handle here. So you need to make sure these clips here are spaced the right distance from the bulkhead to make sure that they function properly. Okay, before we go ahead and install the rail, I wanted to show you something that's a little bit easier to show you when the rail is off the truck versus when it's installing. So this is the end of the rail for the driver's side. So this is what you see when you open up the tailgate and you're looking at the back end of the tailgate or back end of the tonneau cover rail. This is it. So this little channel right here is where that clamp will slip into. It is important that when you're installing it that you install it such that this little lip here, so this little bottom guy, goes all the way in the channel. So what that requires you to do is sort of force it up in there. That's how you want it to seal. Let's see if you can see it closer. So you want that guy to be up inside the channel. You don't want him hanging out below, because you want a nice flat push or fat torque from inside the channel onto the bed rail. So once this is installed, that's how it's pushing up against the bed rail itself. If it's below it, so if when you install it, if you're doing it like that, what ends up happening is you're torquing the whole thing and you're not getting a nice flat, even pull on everything. So you want to make sure that that little lip there on the aluminum clamp is up inside the channel before you start tightening everything down. Okay, so let's look at the driver's side rail. So the first thing you're going to do before you even use these clamps is you want to back those screws out till they're flush with there. That way it's easier to install them on the channel once you get that installed. Then you want to take that little spacer that comes in the kit and you want to slide that into the channel. So basically hooks around that first little clamp. And what you want to do is make sure that that piece of styrofoam is just about touching the front of your bulkhead, because that will space out this clip here. Because like I said, because that section opens, you want to make sure that this is the proper distance from your bulkhead, and you do that via the styrofoam. Then the next thing you're going to want to do is look for these stickers. So these are approximate clamp location stickers, and what you do is you're going to insert your clamps that come in the kit in those locations. So the easiest thing for me is to always do the middle one first, because what you want to do is make sure that this rail sits flat on the bed, so you might have to pull it down a little bit while you're doing the front and rear. So if you could do the middle one, you at least take care of the brunt of the work, then you can go back and do the front and then the rear. So I already have the passenger side rail on here, and what I need to do is go back and make sure that this portion is level. So it's extremely important that you make sure that the rail sits level. So right now, as you tighten it, it pulls it up. So you might need someone to help you, or you just make sure that you're leaning on this to make sure that this portion is parallel to the ground. So let's go ahead and tighten up everything and make sure everything's nice and flat. And then from there, we'll drop on the drain tubes, and then it's time to throw the tonneau cover on. Okay, we got our rails installed. So here's a quick little trick in case the styrofoam spacer isn't touching very well on the front bulkhead. Basically measure, let's see. With the styrofoam spacer, really the dimension that you want is from this inside point all the way to here, because this should be touching your bulkhead, and this should be the start of that first bar right here. So if you take a tape measure and measure this, mine was 5 3/4. So I use that 5 3/4 measurement with a tape measure pushed up against the bulkhead to make sure that that's where this first bar started. And I repeated it on that side as well. So once you got your rails in and they're nice and flat as they can get, I couldn't get them perfectly flat, but once the tonneau cover's in here, it's gonna pull everything down nicely, I think. So once we have the rails in there, now we can start talking about the drainage. So this is the drainage channel, and basically what happens is when water, or if water comes in and gets into this channel, it's gonna make its way here eventually into this drainage tube, and it needs somewhere to go. So my original plan was to dump it right here. However, my plan in the future here is to run a rack or a headache rack of some sort out of this front stake hole pocket. So instead of utilizing this for my drainage route, I'm gonna go down to this bottom opening right here next to the clip, and I'm gonna run the tube down there. I got plenty of length there. I could just basically cut it and route it right into that hole. So gonna go ahead and do that. All right, so our bed is prepped and ready to go to drop the tonneau cover, the liner on. So got the rails installed, went ahead and installed the drain tubes. I got these, I probably cut 5 inches off of the tube that was in there originally, and then routed it down to the bottom hole. Now this might get in the way of these clips later on, so I might figure out another route or another option for how to route this out of the way, maybe pull it over to the corner here. But again, like I said, my original plan was to use these holes, but since I ultimately want to have something in the stake hole pocket, like a headache rack or a ladder rack, I wanted to make sure I left that portion open, because a lot of them use that hole to mount the bottom portion of those rack mounts. So now that we got the rails installed, the hard part's done. So now what we're gonna do is go ahead and grab the tonneau cover itself, and we're gonna drop it on here, and we need to be really careful and mindful of this location right here, because we got some hooks that need to make their way right into this location And once you do that, everything should line up perfectly fine. So let's go ahead and grab that and muscle that guy onto the truck. So what we're looking at right here is the first reason why I bought this truck. It's kind of a combo. So first reason is this whole front section. So what we're looking at is the whole front third section of the tonneau cover. This whole section pops up. Now all you got to do in order to do that is twist this, and then everything pops up. Now what this also allows you to do is lock it in using a technology from a company called Bolt. And if you're unfamiliar with this company, basically what they do is they manufacture a bunch of locking devices that, instead of using the chintzy little tiny keys that most of our locking devices come for like hitch locks and whatnot, wheel locks, the technology that they use allows you to utilize the key to your truck. So inside here is a lock, and what we're going to do is we're going to set that to the lock for my Rebel. So we're going to go ahead and open this up. So now we got the key there. So what we're going to do is insert it into the lock, and we're going to twist it 3/4 of a turn, and we're going to keep twisting it so it memorizes the pattern or the cut of my truck key. That way, if I ever want to lock this, I could just use one key instead of having to worry about another set of keys dangling around, which I will inevitably lose. So let's go ahead and pull this off of there, stick that there, and then we'll stick the key in there. Make sure it's all the way down, and twist it clockwise until it stops. So that's 3/4 of a turn. It looks like it took. So we're good. Okay, after you set up the coding for your key, the last thing you need to do in order to make sure everything functions properly is lift up underneath, and you need to remove that yellow retainer clip. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that, and then we will have a locking tailgate. So there's the clips there. Basically, let's pop that in there. What they're locking down onto is that little silver bar. So you twist that, and just like the rear when you pull on the cable, this one just unlocks these two clips. So let's go ahead and remove that yellow container or retainer clip, and then get everything functioning and line up the back of the tonneau cover. Okay, let's try this again. Now we have our key right now, so it's in the unlock position. Unlock that, should be able to open up this guy. Now we're going to stick our truck key in there. We're going to lock it, and then boom. So it's not going to function until you remove that yellow clip from underneath. Once you allow that to, once you remove that, then you're good to go. So I'm going to leave this, let's say, in the unlock position for now while I'm still making adjustments. The weatherproof seal there. So like I said, that's the Bolt technology. So that's number one why I bought the Extang Encore versus any other tonneau cover on the market. The other reason I bought the Extang Encore, which you're seeing right now, is the finish. So the Encore and the Solid Fold, both are tonneau covers available from Extang, come with this awesome matte finish. Now, my dad has a Solid Fold on his Ram Limited, and the reason I wanted to get the same finish as his is because of durability. So this is an awesome coat. This looks super sweet. It's not going to scratch like some of the other matte finish tonneau covers in the market. So the back MX4, I believe, has a matte finish as well. However, it scratches pretty easily. This is not going to scratch as easily as that one. So right now we got the ability to open up the front third, the ability to lock that front third, and then an awesome finish. So one other thing, which is the reason why I bought this one, that we're going to take a look at it in a second, but let's go ahead and get everything shut, and then we're going to start adjusting these clips here, and then I'll come back and show you the final reason why I went with this cover over the other ones. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do here is we are going to make final adjustments to the rear lacking mechanism. So these mechanisms, both, there's one on each side, and they're activated by just one pull. So you can either pull the cable over there, or you can pull the cable over here. But basically, you pull this cable, and it pulls the lacking mechanisms in, or latching mechanisms otherwise. So what we want to make sure that happens is when we close those latching mechanisms, that they actually grab the inner portion of the rail. Now, probably should shed some light on there. So what you're seeing here is the one on the driver's side clearly clicked, you heard it. However, the one on the passenger side is not engaging as well. So what we need to do is open up that little housing and make the adjustments to move that latch to the outer side or outer portion of the rails. So both sides latch down and it's secure. So right now it's barely hanging on there, maybe 1/8 of an inch. I want a little bit more bite from it, so my stuff inside my bed stays secure. So let's go ahead and open up the mechanism, and I'll show you how to adjust the travel of it. Okay, So making the travel adjustments on the latch is super easy. There's a screw on each side of the latch, and all you do is just loosen those up. You don't need to remove them, and then the whole thing slides out. So what I'm going to do is close it, and then I'm going to play with this. So I'll keep it close in like that. I'll close it, and then I'll slide this out just to make sure it's traveling enough into the rails that it's going to lock everything down. And once it does that, then I'll tighten down these screws, and then we're going to be good to go. Then the cover is fully installed, and we go and kind of do our typical once over of the installation. So let me go ahead and get this guy set up, double check that one on that side, and then we're good to go, and I'll get back with you. Okay, so I went ahead and adjusted both sides just to make sure that they latch well and they travel far into the channel itself. So the other thing is, this is where it's really important to make sure your rails are super parallel. So what I ended up having to do is loosen up this rear clamp and flatten this out as much as I could, because what you want to make sure is when this thing latches, that there's minimal play between the latch and the channel itself. If you have this thing cocked up, if you have this leading edge here cocked up too high and it's not flat like the instructions say, you're gonna have a lot of travel between that, and you're gonna have a lot of slop in the rear tail section. So basically, once you get the cover situated on the rails and get everything tightened down where you want it, you have these yellow straps here, and these yellow straps, there's a hoop just inside the bed rail. So this hoop right here, you wanna make sure that these yellow rails are hard to do at this angle, are attached there. That's the safety rail. That way, if you're driving down the expressway and for whatever reason this portion is not connected, you're not going to lose your tonneau cover like a frisbee, and it becomes a road hazard. So again, make sure that when you install everything, you have these clamps on there. They're not adjustable, but they are there to keep everything tied down. So you also want to make sure that your clamps on the rail are tightened down to 10 foot-pounds per the instructions. So got everything adjusted and installed, so let's go ahead and close it up, and I'll show you the tonneau cover and go over the last reason why I went with this one. So let's say you're done with your truck and you want to close it. Got everything done, closed, everything cinched down. So the reason why I got rid of my rugged liner cover and went with the Extang, again, a couple reasons. One, this tonneau cover gives you the ability to open up this front section. So we just unlock it here or unlatch it here, lift up here, and then you can get it in the front. So if you have a toolbox here, you're good to go. For my purposes, I'll probably have a bunch of my straps right here, and it's easier to get at them here versus in the rear, which is why I should have went with the multifunctional tailgate, but I didn't. So we'll be able to pop up that 1/3 section. The finish is amazing. I absolutely love the finish Extang uses on the solid fold and Encore. It looks extremely nice. It's not that shiny polished finish, it's a nice matte finish that definitely goes well with the direction I'm going with my Ram Rebel. Kind of gives it a nice rugged look. The other reason why I absolutely love this tonneau cover, why I went with this one over any other one, is the latching mechanism is similar to all of the other inside of the bed rail designs. So what I mean by that is there's that cable right here. So if I pull this guy, I can open up the whole tail section. I don't have to go to both sides and unlatch it. So with the solid fold and the previous rugged liner that I used to have on the truck, I'd have to unlatch over here, walk over here, unlatch here in order to get into that rear tail section. That's fine if you always have clean access to both sides. However, it's pretty tight in my garage, so I wanted the ability to lean in one side and be able to open up the whole tailgate section or the whole back section in order to get into the bed itself. So unlike most of the inside the rail hard tri-fold tonneau covers, this one does not fold up against the cab. So that's the only downfall of this cover. Now, what I noticed when I had even the rugged liner is I rarely needed that. So if I ever need access to the whole bed itself, this cover pops off extremely easily. So you just undo this, fold it over, undo the back section, fold that over, then you're good to go. So if I ever need to remove it, or if I want to put the kids' four-wheelers in here, I just pull this whole tonneau cover section off, and then we're good to go. I just leave the rails installed. Otherwise, you just leave everything good to go. So this is the Encore Extang Encore truck bed hard tonneau cover. It's a 1/3 folding cover with a matte finish that has a locking front section that opens up on its own and is super durable, super durable finish on it. Otherwise, I am extremely happy with how well this thing sits on the rails, Gives me access still to both the front and the rear stake hole pockets. So note that, because I think I might have a project in the future that's going to utilize at least the front ones, maybe the rear ones, we'll see. But again, the locking mechanism is the bolt one, so I don't have to have extra keys laying around. It uses my truck keys, and we're good to go. So this is the Encore, or Extang Encore 62421 tonneau cover. I'll have the description, or the link to the product in the description of the video. I purchased this for about, a little over $900, I think. I use the Real Truck best price guarantee program. So basically you call them up and they'll give you the best price, and if you order then and there, they can honor that pricing, which was cheaper than Amazon, which is a surprise. So picked this up from Real Truck. I got it within 2 days. Came out of, I think, Ohio or Indiana, and got it installed today. Overall, super excited for it. If I have any issues back, you guys know I'll report on it in a future video. But with that said, thank you very much for watching the installation of the Extang Encore tonneau cover. Appreciate it. Like, comment, subscribe below. Take care.